Hey everyone, I'm Ronan. Thank you for tuning in to another video. Today we are breaking down probably my all-time favorite Paladin-esque build, the Draconic Paladin. It is a sorcerer slash paladin multi-class, the Sorcadin if you want to call it that. But the way I do gear and some of the interactions I have, I think I found something really cool, so I hope you enjoy. If you guys are new here, comment what you want to see next, and if you enjoy these kind of videos, maybe subscribe to my channel. I gotta say guys, between constant CC of this build, the burst whether you're doing spells or melee damage, support, and everything else in between, this build really can do it all, so I certainly hope you enjoy. To all my members, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for being a member of my channel. If you guys want to get shoutouts like they do, hit join down below. You get early access to my videos and some additional perks from my live streams. Let's go ahead and break this video down. Guys, before we break this build down, I do want to state, because I don't always go over race, because for the most part races don't really make that much of a difference in your character, but for this build specifically, I do think Zerial Tieflings are 100% the best type of character you could be because of the way they interact with some of their spells that they have. Harlack specifically though, because she does have access to soul coins, just makes the build even better, so in my opinion she is the best origin character to go with. If you go with a custom character though, I do want to go over some of the other races. I do think Drow is a really close second because of the darkness and the fairy fire that you have. Specifically fairy fire being a charisma based ability. It is actually really useful for this build as well, so feel free to use whatever you want, but those are my two recommendations. The concept of this build is to be a true spellblade, 6 paladin, 6 draconic sorcerer. Using meta magic can not only set up devastating CC, which will then lead to some large burst, but the spells you use will also enhance your melee attacks when combined with certain gear pieces as well. Furthermore, your smite abilities will have a chance to daze targets with every hit, and you can utilize fear to increase your damage as well. Whether you are attacking from ranged or in melee, you have an answer for just about every scenario. And specifically, all fire magic will be empowered to do increased damage equal to your charisma modifier. Alright guys, my starting stats are on screen now. Don't worry about gear. I'm going to talk about gear that you can utilize between acts 1, 2, and 3 regardless. But when it comes to your starting stats, I do want to state you have really low initiative with this build. So if you would prefer to use Hill Giant Strength Potions and bump up your dex a lot, feel free to do that. If you would prefer to deal with initiative with gear, then I got you covered. The reason we start our stats with this though is because if you want to utilize the Hag's Hair, you have that option, but it's not going to be required for the build whatsoever. I want to have high charisma and high strength, and once you get the max level, you will actually have 20 strength and 20 charisma. It's going to be pretty beastly. I really like it a lot. My skill proficiencies here, I recommend going some type of like charisma based thing since you will have a lot of charisma. Intimidation, persuasion is what I went with. Now when it comes to your subclass for the paladin, you have a couple of different subclasses to pick from. Oath of Vengeance I think is very powerful because you can give yourself advantage for 10 turns, and I'll showcase that in a little bit. Or you could go Oathbreaker. Either of the two have their benefits. I'm going to be going Oathbreaker because I think it fits a little bit better with the theme of the build, but Oath of Vengeance also works as well. As a paladin, you do get to choose a fighting style of your choice. I recommend going great weapon fighting if you want to use a two-hander. Personally though, the way I play the build, I like going with a one-hander and a shield. So because of that, I'm going to be going dueling. That way my one-handed attacks will do additional 2 damage, and it still works if you have a shield in your offhand. If you feel like you want a little bit more AC, you could go defense as well. Pick whatever you wish though. For our first feat, you're going to have 2 different options. You can go athlete if you want to get your strength up to 18 while also increasing your jump distance and reducing the prone penalty. Or my recommendation here is going to be heavy armor master. Don't confuse this with heavily armored. Heavy armor master gives you +1 strength, giving you to 18, and all non-magical attacks, basically melee damage, is going to be reduced by 3 while wearing heavy armor, and this will stack with some of the magical armor that you get later in the game, making you very, very tanky. Now guys, I do want to talk about your second feat here. Your second feat realistically can be up to you. If you want to have max charisma, meaning 20 charisma. Once you get the max level with some gear, you could go ability improvement and get your charisma up to 18 base, and with gear later on it would be 20. Or if you would rather have alert to basically take care of your initiative without the need of any gear, then alert would be the way you want to go. The only difference with this though is you will only have 18 charisma, assuming you do utilize the gear I recommend for this build, which will lower your damage slightly for fire-based attacks, but that's okay because I do find alert to be extremely useful regardless. When you choose the multi-class is going to be up to you. I recommend multi-classing either at level 6 or at level 7. At level 6 Paladin is when you get the aura to help increase your saving throws, but if you do want to start going down the sorcerer tree earlier, you can do it at level 6 instead of level 7. Now, the reason I want to point this out is because we are going to be going sorcerer here. Cantrip wise, don't worry about these. I will talk about why I chose these when I go over spells in a little bit, but we are going Draconic Bloodline. We're going to be choosing our ancestor here and go with red fire. This is going to give you burning hands for free, which is what we want. That way we don't have to utilize any type of spells for it. It will always be prepared. And for those that were wondering, as an Oath of Vengeance Paladin, how you can give yourself advantage for 10 turns, that's going to be using your Channel Oath charge. The way this skill is worded, it says gain advantage on attack rolls against an enemy. We don't know if this is a bug or intended, but you can use this on yourself, and for 10 turns I will have advantage. So if I go to just simply attack, I have advantage. I will have advantage for 10 turns of combat. It is pretty damn powerful, so it is definitely something to consider as an Oath of Vengeance Paladin versus the Oathbreaker instead. And for those wondering, the reason why I decided to go Oathbreaker overall is because we gain Crown of Madness, Darkness, you have Inflict Wounds, which upcasted can be a lot of damage. We have Hellish Rebuke, and with our levels in Sorcerer, this will do additional damage. We have Dreadful Aspect. The fear is actually quite strong, and with gear that we're going to talk about later, this is extremely powerful. Control Undead, especially for Act 2, is super useful. And you do have Spiteful Suffering. This isn't that great overall, but it's not bad either, and in honor mode this is really nice to use on bosses. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, one thing I did want to point out, I did actually respec my paladin to break my oath in Act 3 a little easier. If you go Devotion instead of Vengeance, you can simply kill any NPC and you will automatically break your oath. So if you're looking for an easy way to do it, that's one way to do it. Also, because you do have access to the Potion of Everlasting Vigor, I can get to 20 strength pretty much as soon as we get to Act 2. So right now you see I have 18. Pop that, you are going to be at 20. Alright guys, let's go over spells real quick so you can see what I like using. Feel free to use something else if you don't agree with what I have. So spells that I think are going to be an automatic for this build without a doubt will be Searing Smite. This is like your go-to way to proc some of the rings we were talking about, specifically the Ring of Elemental Infusion. This can proc it, so it's a great way to do that. Not to mention that you get the extra damage when Searing Smite due to being part Draconic Sorcerer. I like having Wrathful Smite, so I have a way to smite the enemy and also fear, which is nice because that then will interact with all my fear debuffs and like fear stacking things. All the other spells though, use whatever you want. Aid is another decent spell. It's one I haven't used much until my live stream mentioned I should start using it more. It's a great way to just increase your maximum HP. Now for the sorcerer side though, this is when things get a little more fun. So for sorcerer, the spells I went with were Shield, great reactive ability to just increase your AC by 5. I did grab Magic Missiles, although this isn't the best class to use it on. You still have a decent amount of spell slots, and there may be times you just want to hit someone from range or hit multiple targets, or simply just finish someone off that's really low. Magic Missiles can definitely help out with that since it never misses. We already had Burning Hands that was already based with this build. I took Thunder Waves just to have another way to possibly knock someone back, and because we are a spell sword, we are in melee a lot, so it's nice to have this. I took Misty Step and Hold Person. If you are an Oath of Vengeance instead of being an Oath Breaker, then you get these two spells for free. so you could utilize different spells. And I went with Scorching Ray and Fireballs just to have them. Scorching Ray is very powerful with this build as well. It's one of the best spells in the game. And because we get extra damage for our fire spells, every single hit is going to do extra damage. So it's a lot stronger than it looks. Alright guys, when it comes to gear, I'm going to go over endgame gear first. And then we'll talk about acts 1 and 2 and stuff like that. So starting out, I do want to say one of my favorite things about this build is the fact that we have so many different ways to CC our targets. No matter what, I think the Blackguard sword that you get inside Act 3 is probably the best paladin weapon to date. Dazing Smite on hit, basically anytime you do any type of smite, the target has to make a Constitution saving throw or they get dazed. Because you can proc this with all your different smites like Searing Smite, Wrathful Smite, and things like that, or it's just from regular Divine Smite, it's extremely powerful. It comes with its own 1d4 necrotic damage as well, which is really, really nice. Now here's when things are going to get even better. So I really like the aspect of causing my enemies to be afraid of me. The reason for that is because we have some ways to make that even better. When you go to the Grim Forge, you can actually get the Bow of the Banshee by killing one of the Dragar on the ship along the way. This Bow of the Banshee is so underrated. It has a weapon enchant that states on hit, possibly inflict frightened. Gain a 1d4 bonus to attack and damage against frightened enemies. Well, that doesn't just affect your bow. That will affect your melee sword as well. And because we have multiple ways to fear targets between Wrathful Smite, between Fear, between Dreadful Aspect, there's so many different ways to cause fear. It is so nice. And if you pair this build with a Warlock that also went Great Old One and is constantly fearing that way as well, you can get a lot of bonus damage here. Hey guys, Future Ronin here. I know I didn't mention Fear in the spell section. That's because it's one of those spells that you either really like it or you really don't. And after testing, I found that I realistically didn't need it that much because I did have other ways to do Fear consistently. So feel free to not use the Fear spell and utilize something else in its place, like Hold Person for example. But here's where it gets even better. In Act 3, you have Shield of the Undevout. Your foes have disadvantage on saving throws to resist your spells or actions that inflict fear. So the chances of you, even though I have 18 charisma with the hat that I'm using, the chances of you applying fear to the enemy are quite high, which is really nice because then we get that bonus damage from Bow of the Banshee. Now, when it comes to all the other gear, I'm pretty sure you can guess just based on the look what it is. So I think the Birthright Helm for this build is very nice. Getting you the +2 charisma gets us to 18. If I chose to go ability improvement over alert, this would get me to 20 charisma, which is really beastly, which means all of our fire spells would be increased. Right now, because we have 18 charisma, we have the +4 modifier, so all fire spells are going to be increased by +4. This will affect things like Legacy of Avernus Searing Smite, and this will affect your regular Searing Smite as well, and it will also affect your cantrips. If you combine that with Necklace of Elemental Augmentation, then your elemental cantrips will do even more damage, so your Firebolt will be doing a lot of extra damage. I went with Cloak of the Weave just to get the extra +1 bonus to spell save DC and attack rolls. You don't have to use this cloak, it's just what I went with. Obviously, the best heavy chest piece in the game will be the Helldusk armor. Plus 21 AC is really nice. You have just so many cool fashion of this too. Like, I love the way my character looks, so I think it looks really badass. But you also, anytime you succeed a saving throw, the caster receives burning for 3 turns. And because we do have the Paladin aura to increase our saving throws, aura of protection, with our charisma modifier being +4, it's going to be +5 to all saving throws. Really powerful. I can't be burned. You have built-in fire resistance if you didn't already have it. You take 3 less damage from all sources, and I get fly. Like, come on, this chest piece is the best, but most people won't get that until late game. Of course, the Helldusk gloves, +1 bonus to spell save DC and attack rolls. Weapon attacks deal 1d4 fire, and you get Raise a Fire cantrip. And guess what? This Ray of Fire's cantrip is affected by the extra fire damage you get for being a Draconic sorcerer, and it's affected by your Necklace of Elemental Augmentation, making it a very devastating attack. Now you have the Hell Dust boots, which of course with the other Hell Dust stuff, it just looks really awesome. But I like this because it gives you a Misty Step ability that also does damage, which is really huge. Now when it comes to my rings, I like using the Necklace of Elemental Augmentation for the reasons we just talked about, and you can get this really early inside Act 1 at the Githyanki Creche. There's actually 2 of these in the game. You can get a second one in Act 3 as well. I like using the Ring of Elemental Infusion here, and the reason for this, although I haven't found a lot of ways to utilize this until now, this thing is awesome. So it reads, when you deal acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage using a spell or cantrip, that element infuses your weapon. So until the end of your next turn, your weapon attacks deal 1d4 of that element on your first weapon attack. I absolutely love this because a really fun combo you can do is to literally use Searing Smite or use your Legacy of Avernus Smite. And because those are smite spells, you also have a chance to daze your target from your weapon. It will also proc the Ring of Elemental Infusion, causing your next melee attack to also do additional 1d4 fire damage, which is really nice. Or anytime you go to use cantrips in general, guess what? You now have that applied to your weapon as well. I also like using the Ring of Arcane Synergy paired with this, because if you do open up with a cantrip, or you do need to attack someone from range because maybe you can't reach them, so you go to firebolt them, well, guess what? Now you have Arcane Synergy as well. So Arcane Synergy is going to give you damage to your weapon attacks equal to your spellcasting modifier. And with this build, I have a +4 modifier, giving us a +4 to our weapon attacks. And like I mentioned earlier, if you didn't take Alert and instead took Ability Improvement, this would be a +5. Let's go ahead and talk about replacement gear though, because I'm sure not everyone's going to have access to all this stuff right away. Alright guys, for other gear that you can utilize, let's look at chest pieces first. So a really underrated chest piece that I think is really useful is the Dwarven Splint Mail. If you did take Heavy Armor Master, you're already going to take 3 less damage from physical attacks. So this also giving +2 Constitution is pretty nice. You could also go with Adamantine Splint Armor, the Reaper's Embrace, and a really fun combination if you want to be really tanky as well is going to be the Rippling Force Mail that you get above Damon inside the chest where his blacksmith area is inside Act 2. You gain Force Conduit whenever you take melee damage or slashing, piercing, or bludgeoning. So Force Conduit's great because this will just reduce the damage you take, and you can like stack that with the sled board you get in Act 3 or some super high Force Conduit stacking stuff to where you're just going to be very, very tanky. And I think this chest piece looks pretty damn cool. Now, obviously in Act 1, use whatever heavy armor you can, but those are some of the chest pieces I would recommend. Now, when it comes to replacement gloves, you have things like the Flawed Hell Dusk, giving you 1d4 fire damage. You have Gloves of Belligerent Skies, because you have multiple ways to apply radiant damage. Well, guess what? This is a great way to add extra CC to your target. Dark Justicier's Gauntlets for the necrotic damage. And for those who are asking, well, what about the heat mechanic, since we seem to have like a lot of like fire damage here? You could use the Thermo Arcanic gloves as well. And this is nice. I do find the heat can be a little disappointing in this game overall, but they're not bad to have, and you can definitely make it work. You can actually combo this with the Thermodynamo Axe as well for even more heat stacking if you wanted. That brings us to our weapons. So your go-to weapon we already talked about for Act 3, but any weapon until then, use whatever you want. Like Blood of Lathander is very powerful because it's one of the earliest legendaries you can get, so shout out to that as well. Now when it comes to your boots here, Boots of Stormy Clamor are actually extremely powerful, and you could actually use this with the endgame gear as well, since you have so many different ways to CC your targets, whether it's fear, daze, and stuff like that. So this is really nice if you wanted to simply just constantly not only daze your targets with your smites, but also apply reverberation at the same time. Of course, you have like the Boots of Persistence that you get in Act 3. They're very powerful. Disintegrating Nightwalkers that you get from the Grimforge are such a great set of boots. Evasive Shoes if you want a little bit more AC. Boots, there's so many of them, pick whatever you want. Your replacement helms here, really early on, the Haste Helm can be nice for the extra movement early on. If you want just a slightly bit more initiative and spell save DC, you can use the Fistbreaker Helm. If you want Helm of Arcane Acuity, this can be very useful for this build as well. That way you can get better spell save DC after attacking with melee attacks. Or if you want to not be crit ever, you have the Grimskull Helm, which I do think looks pretty damn cool. Your replacement shields, the sled board's nice. If you want more initiative, the Sentinel Shield is really powerful. Adamantine Shield, so you can't be crits, really nice. Ketheric Shield, and in Act 2, the Shield of Scorching Reprisal is also really nice because this will give you Blazing Retaliation, essentially a bonus action you can use once per short rest to give you AC +1 and do fire damage back to your attackers that miss you. The Banshee Bow in combination with the Shield of the Undevout is just such a great combo, but of course you could use any other type of like bows that you would want. Shout out to the Hellrider Longbow for the extra initiative. You have the extra crit from the Deadshot. And if you want a little bit of extra resistances, you can go with the Darkfire Shortbow. You can have haste of this as well, but because we have multiple ways to do new concentration spells, I wouldn't recommend the Darkfire Bow for haste. Let someone else use that instead. Now for your rings and necklaces, all three of these come super early. All of these are within the Githyanki Creche. So if you want to replace these with any other rings, feel free. One ring I would recommend really early on in Act 1 is going to be the Crusher's Ring. +10 movement is never a bad thing. Also, because we do have access to darkness, you have the Eversight Ring. That way you can't be blinded. And that's pretty much it for gear. I mean, obviously you could use like the Helldusk Helm as well if you wanted that, but I like having the extra charisma instead, so that's really up to you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be going through a little bit of a different combat showcase compared to my normal videos. Because there's so many different ways to play this build, I do want to showcase just different scenarios in general. So starting out, I do want to show that we can go ahead and use Quicken Spell. That way we can get meta magic, and I'm going to open up with Hold Person here. And I'm going to try to CC 4 people at once. All right, so I have 4 people. They are all CC'd because they are in Hold Person. If you're within 10 feet of them, you will have an automatic 100% chance to crit, which is very, very powerful. So now that I do have these guys CC'd, let's go ahead and take a look at the different scenarios that I could do now. All right, so scenario 1 is probably one that is just the most obvious to people. It's really fun, and that is to simply twin cast on your enemies. So as long as I'm within 10 feet of both these targets, I will have a 100% chance to crit. So let's kind of like stand between them here. We will go with our twin spell, and I'm actually going to use Firebolt here. I'm going to hit the target here, and I'm going to hit the target here. See how if I go to Casto, it says 100%? That's how you know without a doubt it will 100% crit because I'm within range. So I did 50, and then I also did 50 to them. So not bad for a simple attack and a cantrip. So I didn't even use any spell slots whatsoever. So now, you know what? Let's go ahead and do it again. It's just really fun to do a lot of damage. Or instead, what I could do, although this isn't going to crit the enemy, I could come back and use a really fun fireball spell and just hit a bunch of targets at once, like so. So I did 30 to them. So already these guys are halfway and I killed both of them at once. All right, so for the next scenario, something that you could try to do if you didn't want to simply attack these guys with like any type of cantrips or any spells like that, if you just kind of want to have fun, you could knock everyone back at once. I'm going to try to get all these guys back. I'm almost in range to hit that guy in front of me too. Let me go just slightly forward here and I should be able to get everyone. Let's go ahead and upcast this too. There we go. This will hit everybody except for the ranger behind me. So everyone got knocked back except for the one guy who got saved. Didn't do a lot of damage, but it was a great way to knock everyone back. So if you had someone else in your party that had something set up back there, like a firewall or something else, all those guys would have took a lot of extra damage. But now that that happened, I'm going to go ahead and follow up. So let's go ahead, and this target here, I don't like her. She's probably going to end up trying to like heal or do something else. So let's try to debuff her just from using like rank 1 divine smites. And you can see she is now dazed from a rank 1 divine smite. Dazed, they have disadvantage on wisdom saving throws, can't take reactions, and they lose their dexterity bonus on their armor class. That is very, very powerful. Not to mention it also procs reverberation at the same time. So she's just about dead. So how about we just finish her? And I'm just going to end my turn. Now I'm going to purposely let this guy hit me because I do want to showcase some really powerful effects of Hellish Rebuke. So I'm going to use a rank 1 Hellish Rebuke on this guy. Didn't do a lot of damage, but that's okay. The reason it's important that we did that is because I now have Fire Infusion. So that's a great way to get the additional 1d4 fire damage on your weapon attacks by simply using a reaction like that. So now that it's my turn, I got a bunch of other things I could do. So I say we go ahead and simply blow up some of these enemies, shall we? I'm going to get between both of these guys. I'm going to go ahead and use one of my meta magics here, my quicken spell. That way this is going to be a bonus action. We will completely wipe this guy off the map. He's gone. I also have arcane synergy and it redid my fire infusion in case I did need it. So then we can follow up by simply having 2 actions. So do I want to use a spell? Do I want to attack? So I could use a spell like Scorching Ray, for example. Rank 3 probably is enough to kill this guy. That actually allows overkill. So now we're going to come over here. We will attack this target in front of us. Well, I didn't even need to use Divine Smite because he died. All right, so let's attack this one next. Divine Smite, rank 1. So all we have left is this guy all the way up there now. So another really fun combo that I like utilizing is actually the Strange Conduit Ring instead of the Ring of Arcane Synergy. And the reason for that is this is going to give me 1d4 psychic damage on all my weapon attacks whenever I'm concentrating, right? So one thing you can do if you know you have a target that's at ranged or just any other target you want him to attack their allies, you can use Crown of Madness. I'm going to use it on the ranger back there. So now he is going to attack the closest ally to him. I'm going to use Dreadful Aspect and try to get everyone feared. Everyone was feared except for this target in front of me, which is fine. I'm going to go ahead and attack her, and remember, because they are feared, I get the extra damage from my Bow of the Banshee for my melee hits as well. So let's go ahead and come up to her. One thing we can start out with is simply dazing her, which I think is hilarious because daze will proc your Divine Smite. But we can also daze from Divine Smite because of our sword. So instead, let's open up with a regular melee hit, maybe Lacerate. Get her bleeding. And I'm going to go ahead and use a rank 3 Divine Smite. So she is dazed, which is fantastic. Let's follow up with a regular hit. She's gone. Now this guy in front of me, let's go ahead and daze him instead. So you can see I went to use Pummel Strike. It didn't do that much damage at first glance. Only 7, which isn't much. I had the 3 fire and the 4 psychic. So what I can do instead now is simply use Divine Smite. Let's go ahead and use a rank 4 since it is a lot of damage. And because he's dazed, he doesn't have reaction, so I can move somewhere like right here where I'm going to be out of range for them to hit me, but I'll be good to go still. And because he is with the Crown of Badness, he's going to attack his own allies, which I just think is hilarious. They're all frightened, so they can't really do much to me other than throw things because I'm not in range of their weapon attacks. This guy is going to try to hit me. I'm going to go ahead and let him hit me. That way I can use Hellish Rebuke. I'll use a rank 2. And then this will also give me my extra 1d4 fire as well from Fire Infusion. Alright, so now that it's my turn, this guy is almost dead. This guy has a lot of HP. This guy about half, and this guy is totally full. So one thing we can do now is start using our Quicken spells here. So I like using Quicken spell. Let's go ahead and use a really high level Fireball, rank 5, and try to hit everyone at once. This guy I don't need to worry about. He only has 10 HP, so let's use it on these guys instead. So he died. He had a save. He, I think, also had a save as well. So what I could do now is also use another Fireball. But that kind of feels like a waste, but we're going to do it anyway. I just want to make sure I'm not going to get hit. So let's move back slightly and get another Fireball. So that guy is almost dead. He's almost dead. And what's fantastic is on the archer's turn, he will attack his allies and pretty much kill them for free. All right, guys, I have one little final tip here. Although I'm sure there's plenty of other ways you could figure out how to play this build, like knocking people back and throwing a bunch of fireballs and stuff like that at people. So one thing you can do if you want to get easy, I'm talking just easy hold persons on people, is to daze them first. Daze, if you read, they have disadvantage on wisdom saving throws. Hold person is a wisdom saving throw check. So what we can end up doing also, if you want to get even more damage as well for burst, is you need to let these guys hit you. So I purposely let him hit me so I can just use a spell like Hellish Rebuke. I'm just using a rank 1 right here. That way I can just do a little bit of damage, but I get my Fire Infusion, okay? Now here's when things get cool. So now I have the extra 1d4 fire on my attack. Now if my Divine Smite, when I attack him normally, if it procs and he gets dazed, my hold person is going to be even better. So he's dazed. Now when I go to use hold person, it goes up to 96%, which is pretty nutty considering it's a huge increase. It's really so much better on other people that have a lower chance to proc, but you get what I'm saying. Anyway, guys, I really hope you enjoyed the build. If you did, definitely let me know in the comments down below because I had so much fun making it. So I really hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Comment what you want to see next, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.